Hi there, Lauren Heistad returning and reading through my book Homecoming. Today we're within a bridge chapter, I guess I would call it. It's an introduction to the third book, Mastering Your SOULworks. So we've been through the first two, moving into my third book. And when I amalgamated all the books, I had put some blog posts in. They remind me of journal entries at this point, but they were key in my mind anyways, as to where my life path, which direction it started to take, even my own insights and voicing of opinion, I guess, started to come through stronger. And I did decide to include them in my book. And although I've hesitated on whether I was even going to include them here as I read through the entire trilogy, I decided I would. So, we will start there, okay? Okay, so Mastering Your SOULworks Introduction. Included within the Trilogy edition are various... Damn. You know why I hesitate? It's because every time I read another chapter, I've gone farther beyond the point of return, right? Okay. So within the Trilogy edition are various milestone blog posts. They have been included for the purpose of bringing closure to both the biblical era and my journey through prophecy fulfillment. Incorporated here are a few key posts that preceded the publication of my third book, Mastering Your SOULworks. Okay, now we're all up to speed. The first one is called Good Friday, ? And it was posted on April 2nd, 2021. Okay. Only a few of my closest friends would ever realize how much I struggle with the arrival of Easter weekend. Over the years, I've had many emotional reactions and breakdowns from this particular holiday and have tried. Lord knows I have tried. I've tried utilizing many different approaches and techniques to personally broach and heal from the topic at hand. I have. I've spent many years trying to find peace with this globally recognized holiday. Utilized the stat as a simple opportunity to share time with loved ones. Powered straight through like it was just a regular weekday. Or more often than not, use the time in solitude struggling with how to calm my mind from all the incoming upheaval and energetic overload rising to the surface, originally buried deep within my heart and soul. Now, of course I recognize how much this holiday means to many. I do. And I truly don't like to disrespect others' rights to their own faith and belief systems. I realize that for many, the Easter story restores faith. It restores faith in better things yet to come, and I am keenly aware of how many around the globe feel emotionally connected to the significance behind this particular biblical story. Of course I do. However, to me, I always find myself caught between wanting people to find and experience such a high degree of faith and courage in this divine appointment in time, while also finding my own authentic voice and perspectives rising to the surface. And then there's the more logical part of my brain that cautiously considers how continuing to be so vocal about this biblical entanglement of mine has the potential to negatively affect my family and business over time. Because to be honest, even from my more milder rants or messages written within my books, the first two, or blog posts along the way, I have lost many customers along the way as they read through my experiences and then quietly stopped coming by or hit the unsubscribe button, more content to stay within the comfort zones of their own understandings. This very obvious reaction to the words and teachings I express gives me the undeniable urge to stop moving forward with my own soul works. When in that place of inner turmoil, the resistance I experience makes me review both my life path and my messages over and over again, secretly hoping that one day I will let go of the need to be so damn vocal. Truth. If I were to be brutally honest, though, I consider myself to be a teacher and messenger of change first and foremost, no matter what that means to the bottom line of my business venture or the number of brave souls that have the heart and courage to hear my words. When reviewing my lifetimes of spiritual encounters, it's very clear to me that I have always been an advocate for change, have always been propelled to step in and make a difference, and will never stop encouraging people to see our own individual and collective potential from a more expansive and inclusive perspective. I'll be right back. In truth, much of my time is also spent helping both my family and I surrender to and accept my life path as it unfolds. It's not been an easy journey, with much uncertainty, financial overload, and the faith needed to continue forward. If I were to further identify my personal goals for her SOULworks, it might even shock you to know that last on my list last on my list would be the business end of things and the products and services I provide, or did provide. In other words, although I deeply value my customers and clientele greatly and appreciate my beautiful place of work absolutely every single day, I didn't start SOULworks as a business venture. I started it as a voice, an inner sanctuary to my own truth and story. That's an insane truth, since I'm back at home. But don't want to spoil the ending, do we? For now, at this point in my journal entry, the truth is, I will never consider it good on any day of the week, let alone a Friday, to celebrate the life of a light worker being cut short by the actions and reactions to those who simply fear change and the unknown. I will never put all my faith and belief in one person's ability to change the world, and instead pledge to do my individual part in creating a more peaceful existence starting from within. I would never expect someone to shed their own blood. Are you kidding me? Shed their blood or carry the load from my personal transgressions? Not a chance. And instead will always stand accountable for my own wrongdoings or misguided actions. Fact. And most importantly, no matter what predominant beliefs exist in this world, I will never unsubscribe to my own understandings. Nor will I stay silent so as not to ripple the status quo or protect the bottom line of my business venture. I would much rather stay true to my own personal experiences and lose the shirt right off my back than to silence my own personal integrity or voice along the way. Which brings me to this very moment in time. April 2021, but maybe today, we'll see. For today might just be the very first Good Friday I've ever experienced as of yet. I'm celebrating 8 years since opening my SOULworks to the public, 10 years since having started to express my truth, share my story, stay authentic to my own voice and experiences, and in reality, entire lifetimes of learning how to surrender to my own life path and soul potential. Within those celebrations, I have come to the conclusion that surrendering to your life path is not an act of giving up. It is an inner understanding that involves making peace with and fully standing within your own soul works, regardless of where, when, or how others also choose to stand. Okay. The next journal entry is from January 6th, 2022. and it is called the Year of Personal and Global Transformation. You ready? A little backgrounder before I begin my official post of the new year, back in 2022. Okay, so in 2012, I wrote my first book, Activating Your SOULworks, which I eventually found the courage to self-publish a whole whopping 2 years later. Essentially, it is a book about my life and how I worked through my earlier years of personal confusion and transformation towards connecting to spirit, energy healing, and navigating all those voices within my conscious awareness. In 2017, I published my second book, Evolving Your SOULworks. It is a personal account of both remembering and stepping more fully into my life path. Full disclosure, I'm still working on that. Even to this day, I'm fully aware that I'm still working on that. Okay, so last year, this would have been in 2021, I finished the contents of my third book, Mastering Your SOULworks, which involves rising above my own personal insecurities and judgments about my own life path so I can be a clear channel of my own understandings, teachings, and the fulfillment of my ultimate message. Well, if I'm being completely honest here, it is well beyond my own insecurities and judgments I am trying to navigate. Definitely. It is the thoughts, expectations, and opinions of all others geared towards me that I am also working to overcome. My third book is ready. I am not. However, I am presently and wholeheartedly working to transform my current mindset until I do feel ready. I've officially taken off all sessions and teachings and have perhaps prematurely vowed to myself and all others that the next written word to leave my desk will be the final book of my SOULworks Trilogy. Admittedly, if I need to move beyond all judgments before I feel comfortable enough to hit print, that might take a while. I've given that reality some serious thought lately. I believe that individually we still have much inner work to accomplish to help facilitate the global transformation currently underway. And I'm actually knee-deep in the middle of my own personal transformation, which I have decided to write about publicly. A few years later, I guess I've decided to speak about it publicly. Quite personal, actually, because I'm working through the last of my biggest fears, insecurities, thought processes, and limiting belief systems that need a serious upgrade and purging before I can move forward. Technically, the entire world needs to do the very same, so I figure, why not walk this final leg of our collective transformation together? Besides, the truth is, I receive clarity and understanding through my own written process. Writing process, but now written process. My concept is to embrace this transformation as I've always done. One step at a time, 1 month at a time, one limiting fear and belief at a time. A personal advent calendar of sorts, where I identify, surpass, and count down to the official moment when I finally and fully show up for myself. Each month I will write a blog post aimed at working through my own insecurities. The purpose? Learn to surpass my self-inflicted judgments so that I can finally move forward with my life path. I'll even start with my biggest, scariest, and most monster-type fears until I work my way down to the only one. Only one. The fear that I literally have no more fears holding me back. I encourage you to do the same. You do your personal transformation. I'll do mine. And together, we will rock this global, generational leap of collective awareness beyond the current vibration. Here we go. The countdown begins with the largest of my biggest fears, insecurities, thought processes, and limiting belief systems that are in need of a serious upgrade and purging. Are you ready? Limiting fear and belief number 1. I am the Antichrist. There it is. And just to be clear, in my second book, Evolving Your Soul Works, I go through a process of describing Antichrist in the terms of love or anti-love. But that's not my fear. My fear is that I am the Antichrist, as written and perhaps understood through the ages. Yep, there it is. Perhaps one of the largest fears holding me back ever is the original prophecy, concepts and understandings around the term, and expected arrival of the Antichrist. I mean, really, who wants to be that guy or girl? I wouldn't wish that label on my worst enemy. I wouldn't. Let alone want that role for myself. But there it is. A very large, specific role I am technically afraid of and still in waiting for. Obviously, I need to take this fear and obliterate it once and for all. I have wasted way too much of my lifetime worrying about the anticipated arrival of this very moment. I have admittedly given far too much power to this concept and or person, and truthfully have literally avoided this antagonistic climax for way too long. It is time to face this fear and shift my perspective once and for all. Now, I assume we all know the basic concepts around the original texts, but just a quick refresher here and breakdown. By definition from the biblical text, okay? So the term Antichrist is defined as, wait a minute, what the F? You mean to tell me original biblical texts regarding an actual individual filling the role of the Antichrist doesn't even exist beyond the interpretation of there being many false prophets? Seriously, what the F? Where the hell? Sorry, I'm laughing at my own reading here. Where the hell was the fact check and Wikipedia standards thousands of years ago when this crap originally began to surface? Right? Okay, new angle. Let me tackle my fear from another perspective. by identifying and overcoming my own deep-seated definition of Antichrist, one point at a time. Okay, so my original understanding and limiting belief of the term Antichrist identifies a person in opposition of the traditional Jesus story, who is expected to appear before the end of times during an apocalyptic type scenario and lead the world away from traditional teachings and understandings. Okay, that's my definition based on traditional beliefs that I had. Do you want me to read that again? I will. My original understanding and limiting belief of the term Antichrist identifies a person in opposition of the traditional Jesus story who is expected to appear before the end of times during an apocalyptic type scenario and lead the world away from traditional teachings and understandings. Now, breaking that down further. Okay, a person in opposition of the traditional Jesus story. Check. Well, if we want to get technical, I do feel that personal definition quite open and regularly, actually. Right from the beginning of my SOULworks, I have been a strong proponent to no one individual person being designated to save the world. I strongly advise and suggest there being significant untapped soul potential within us all. And let's not forget, try as I may, I do believe I have been living prophecy right here and in the now, in this current lifetime, not from days gone by. Fact. Okay, point number 2. Someone who is expected to appear before the end of times. Check. Well, as I've said before, you would have to be living under a rock to not understand we are within transformational times with a clear ending to old beliefs, understandings, and perspectives, while new beginnings and higher level consciousness rise to the surface. In fact, I have been talking about this very shift in perspective for so many years. So many years. And of course, the more obvious reality is that I am not the only one who has recognized this time as the end of an old era and the beginning of a new one. In fact, by now, most truth seekers, mystics, and open-hearted folks know this to be true. Of course they do. Hell, even the most closed-minded of souls are very much aware and acknowledge that something is going down. Fact. Number 3. Someone who arrives during an apocalyptic type scenario. Check. I mean, really. How much more do we need than our current world upheavals? Pandemics, floods, fires, famine, and battles of supremacy to recognize the crumbling of the old ways are making way for the new. Fact. And number 4, someone who leads the world away from traditional teachings and understandings. Double check. To be honest, I live and breathe to help lead the world away from traditional teachings and may, in fact, loathe original doctrines entirely. Okay, not entirely. I actually respect some of the original unedited texts, but I do most certainly see magnitudes of room for improvement. In fact, demonstrating those wider, bigger picture perspectives is the entirety and culmination of my entire SOULworks. Fact. Ironically, when I stare down my biggest fear and face it head on, I'm left with full clarity, well, more obviously a full slate of checked boxes to my own definition. I'm not afraid of my original version of the Antichrist. I embody it. Proudly, actually. I no longer place value on a perspective within outdated texts and mindsets. I surpass it. In truth, I have been awaiting the arrival of this very moment in time my entire life. I openly, unapologetically, and with absolute certainty fulfill my own original definition of the role Antichrist. In fact, when I really take the time to think about it, I'm no longer afraid of who I'm becoming or how the world will perceive me. To be honest, I'm way more afraid to remain in the shadows without having the courage to step forward, oppose the traditional Jesus story, acknowledge the end of an outdated era, welcome the beginnings of higher consciousness, and help lead the world towards our individual and collective potential. Next. Oh, yes, we're dealing with my limited fear and belief number 2. I'll be right back. Okay. So, limiting fear and belief number 2. This was posted on February 18th, 2022. The countdown of personal and global transformation continues with my second biggest fear, insecurity, thought process, and limiting belief system in need of a serious upgrade and purging so that I can finally hit print on my third book, bringing closure and new beginnings for myself and all others. Big breath. And a small drum roll here, please. Limiting fear and belief number 2. I must wait for outside events, factors, people, or situations to line up before proceeding. As many of you may or may not know, the last 9 plus years of my life has been following a very specific timeline. Very specific. Try as I might to alter the direction of my own soul works, my life path continues to unfold in accordance with scriptures and prophecy, which does seem to be lingering on and on, by the way. So why the ongoing delay in my own personal and our global unfoldment, and will there ever be an end to this madness? Because just to be clear, I do feel that hitting print on my third book will officially liberate myself, or not, from this burden and provide the freedom needed to start moving forward. That's true. However, the issue is that I've always had visions of specific events unfolding right around the release of my third book. Stars that would eventually align and external events that would somehow prove that I am who I say I am, demonstrate that I'm ready to accept my own truth, and or further confirm my own unique and individual soul works. Now, I've been thinking about this ridiculous thought process a lot lately. Yes, I did see visions of what would be happening in my life around that specific point in time. And yes, my life has been following a very specific timeline and precise set of visions for many years now, relentlessly haunting my mind and soul. However, the when, where, and how I choose to move my life path forward has nothing to do with external event, expectations, or the life path of any other soul on or off this planet being either ready or willing to accept my own unique adventure. Nope. In fact, I have accomplished and lived out what I have over the course of my life by moving forward beyond the expectations, actions, and opinions of all others, thankfully, and instead by simply living my life. Not by waiting on someone else to confirm or tell me I am okay and worthy enough to be the living, breathing co-creator in this world. A living, breathing co-creator in this world. Instead, I have arrived at this very moment in time by allowing myself the right to live my life fully and authentically, with or without anyone else approval or opinions getting in the way. Now, lately I feel like I'm not doing that anymore. Living my authentic life, that is. Instead, I feel like I'm in a holding pattern, waiting for myself and all others to be ready. Pausing for a few more events to play out, and secretly wishing for any other outcome or further confirmation before proceeding. Perhaps even expecting a divine intervention or for the sky to break open. With angelic forces daring myself and the world to embrace and create a new reality. Sure, it sounds silly now that I really think about it. In fact, I've spent my entire career insisting that no one can define who we are. And yet here I am, waiting for events and situations to unfold specifically so that I can finally confirm and further define what I already know. The wonderful part about being an individual aspect of source potential is that no one can ever define who we are unless we let them. Waiting for events and scenarios in our lives to perfectly line up. Aiming for external validation before proceeding. Or pausing until we feel completely ready and sure-footed to move forward is not only unnecessary, but technically both physically and mentally exhausting. If there's one thing I have learned over the many years of personal transformation, it is that we never seem to feel completely ready for change. However, at some point, we must decide that it is officially time and give ourselves full permission to move forward into the next chapter of our lives, even with all those endless fears, judgments, and insecurities still in tow. Now, I'd like to say there is a foreseeable end to my fears and limiting thought processes. In truth, I could potentially write about my plethora of insecurities indefinitely. I'd also like to say I have my own personal life and ambitions perfectly sorted out and in place. Ready to proceed. However, I don't believe I will ever feel that confident or ready to dive in without a little insecurity, or a lot, still vying for my attention below the surface. Truth. I'd even love to convince myself and all others that I am delaying the inevitable so that I can catch my breath or take some well-deserved me time for a while. In truth, I feel I have been on this perpetual pause mode, waiting for this very moment in my life to unfold for practically ever. And in all honesty, I am officially way more tired of the delays and personal exhaustion felt by staying within this purgatory limbo. Then I technically am still scared of the unknown or potential fallout from moving forward. Which makes one thing perfectly clear. It's time to stop delaying the inevitable. Wrap this prophecy up. Seal in my fate. And move on with my life no matter what the outcome, big or small. I've been held captive. I have been held captive in this old story for far too long. 490 weeks within this specific lifetime, to be exact, at the time. Making it way more than enough to officially mark the end of this chapter in my life and the beginning of new adventures yet to come. As for my own limiting fears and beliefs continuing to hold me hostage, making me feel as though I must wait for outside events, factors, people, or situations to either line up or confirm my life path before proceeding, with all due respect, screw that. I plan to be the captain of my own ship and authentically chart the course of my own SOULworks, regardless of who else is ready for that ship to set sail. Besides, I prefer to make my own destiny while reaching for the stars. And with that, I have an official announcement to make. Mastering Your SOULworks release date, April 12th, 2022. Next. Limiting fear and belief number 3. I don't think so. My second declaration is all I have coming. P.S. My wish for myself and all others is to move forward through this transformation with divine blessings and grace. I'll see you there.